everybody. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Kayla.
We love movies.
And talking about them.
This is the Martini Window. Joining us today, we have Filmmaker and Second AC with such credits as Power of the Wingman, Between Two Pints, and Second AC on such series as The Flash. Today, everybody enjoy Rob Hunt. Rob, thank you for joining us on the show.
My pleasure, Kevin and Kayla.
Lovely to have you here.
Yeah. Now, we actually have some familiarity with Rob. The three of us just completed working on a music video recently, and Rob and myself and Kayla actually worked on the same series for quite a while. So it's really nice to be able to talk to you here, Rob, about a movie that you particularly were interested in talking about today.
Absolutely. I'm excited. Should I tell them? I can tell them.
You can tell them. Please tell them.
Yeah, so when we talked about this, I had two choices, and my initial gut reaction would have been a little bit less interesting, and I want to talk about Death to Smoochy today.
Yeah.
Directed by Danny DeVito, a box office flop, however, a cult classic.
I feel most cult classics start as flops. We were watching a video earlier about the movie, and we just rewatched the movie for this, by the way, and it is so funny.
It's incredible.
Absolutely, deftly hilarious. And
I had never seen this movie before, and it's now one of my favorite movies. I love black comedies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I saw a video review, and they think that the reason it bombed is because it's super weird, but also it's so black. Like, it's about kids stuff, so people kind of go expecting it to be fun, and it's dark.
Well, this is also 2002, man. Like, this was not a same era for now. Kids stuff had to be pretty whitewashed and pretty censored back then. So you're advertising, like, you think about the fact that even in 2016, Sausage Party came out in the era of the internet, clearly an R-rated animated movie. People were still taking their kids there and getting pissed off. Like, I could see why in 2002 they thought a Robin Williams movie with a Barney-like character was going to be fun for kids.
Oh, yeah. And, well, it's interesting because it kind of predicted how people love watching famous people melt down and destroy themselves with Robin Williams' character. And I feel like they really saw that coming, because that wasn't that. Like, without social media in 2002, they really you couldn't do it the same.
No, but that was the era of, like, the reality TV show, though. We were starting to get into that really trashy era of television.
Oh, God, I hated that era.
Yeah. My family loved the Osbournes back then.
Yeah. I liked the Joe Schmo show, but
that was a
about
fun one. From the same creators of Deadpool and Zombieland, funnily enough. Same writers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick. Yeah. Are you familiar with the Joe Schmo show, Kayla?
I never saw the Joe Schmo show.
So it was fantastic. So it was this show back in, I think it was like 2003, 2002. Was it 03, Rob?
Yeah, it was. I believe it was 03, but it was. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, so it was a series on Spike TV, and what it was a reality show where it was kind of like a Bachelorette type series, right?
Okay.
Except everybody in this series, except for one guy, was an actor. Everyone. It was so it was a reality show using the tropes of reality shows to Truman Show this one contestant throughout the whole thing.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
It did a wonderful job highlighting that, like, because he was genuinely a decent person on the show. And it just highlighted how, like, a lot of reality shows where people are acting awful, like, they're doing it because they're on camera. They're doing it. Like, it's fiction. They're not really like that. And it's kind of sad.
Yeah, whereas in the case of Joe Schmo show, these actors were quite literally also writers. Like, two of the actors in the show were David Hornsby, who plays David on Mythic Quest nowadays and was known as Rickety Cricket for the rest of Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Rickety Cricket.
Yeah, Rickety Cricket and Always Sunny. And an early appearance of an early role for Kristen Wiig.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Kristen Wiig was in that cast years before SNL.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that was the era of this movie, and you are right. The writer of this clearly had an understanding of where society was going here, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, like, not even just that, Adam Resnick. Thank you. Adam Resnick. Not even just that, but it kind of predicted our level of cancel culture nowadays.
Oh, yeah. Well, and even the weird, it's really weird and not totally, but, like, he takes him to a Nazi rally.
Oh, my God.
Like that was absurd in 2002. But, like, now, not so, like, what is it, a Proud Boys meetup? Like, it's, there are those. Like, I thought that was just such an absurd thing. Like, it's a comedy, obviously. That such a thing doesn't happen. It's like, crap, man, it does. Like, wow.
How crazy to think, by the way, that Nazis in media and otherwise were, like, we just assumed everyone knew it was bad. Like, anytime you see Nazis in a movie or show, it's for a reason like that. Like Blues Brothers, the Illinois Nazis, same thing. And that was, like, 1982. Go forward, and we have Go Forward. We're here at the same thing with with this Nazi rally actually showing up, and you're right, like it's played as a joke back then, but we are actually in an era now, funnily enough, where this is a real damn thing. It's an actual concern people should have.
Didn't somebody give the new Indiana Jones a bad review because they didn't explain why you had to punch Nazis?
Yeah, some right wing reviewer ended up giving a bad review because he is like, oh, well, they're punching the Nazis for no reason. They don't show why they're evil.
It's Indiana Jones.
And they're Nazis. There's only a few objectively evil things in this world, and we all agreed in the 40s that Nazis were one of them.
Oh, yeah.
The world collectively agreed they were bad, right?
Yeah, the whole world was there.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. That scene is hilarious, though. Especially because you contrast it with just this, like, what was it? Jon Stewart's character in the movie refers to Sherman as a bottle of bottle of maple syrup in a person.
Yeah.
Like, he's just the sweetest, most squeaky clean person you could imagine.
What I actually found that I really loved in the comedy of this is just the situational character humor of when you need a squeaky clean person for TV, but then you have corrupt execs actually having to deal with someone with morals.
Yeah.
They're like, this looks great. Let's get him on. Oh, wait, we can't sell stuff anymore.
Yeah, or it has to be healthy, and it's not addictive. And
yeah. Well, it's like that bit with the ice rink when he's talking to Benny, and he says, and you want to do all this and give half the profits away? No, we're giving away all the profits. The other half's going to, like, I just love that. The assumption is, don't you understand? Only half of them are going to the methadone clinic. We're getting rid of all of it, though. Like, just each reveal that tops the other with him, I love throughout that movie. Also, for a movie in 2002, to have a guy talking about, like, moving over to gluten-free bread and, like, his weird-ass hot dog he's eating at one point that dyes his teeth green as he's talking to Nora Catherine Keener, who is phenomenal.
The, like, veggie dog. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the veggie dog. And it's funny because Kayla and I were talking about this, and what was you were saying, Kayla? Like,
I was like, this is almost normal now, but back when this movie came out, I think this was written to highlight how much of an extreme difference is between them.
Yeah.
Because this would have been seen as kind of crazy and
yeah, and now it's like, oh, are you on the carnivore diet? No, I'm on this diet. It's like...
it was quite ahead of its time in that way. And like, I think, I'm gonna start from the beginning on this one. So the movie starts off with Robin Williams doing this fantastic scene sequence with all these kids, as Rainbow Randolph, right? And what I find interesting is that you have the entire motivation behind Robin Williams in this movie, his revenge against Smoochy and everything. They really reel it all out in like the first 10 minutes of the movie. Like,
oh yeah, he just crashes and burns as a career
in like the first 2 minutes.
Yeah. No, I like, there's so much about that even now that it's just like, well, also it's weird because like he hasn't play Robin Williams hasn't played a lot of villains or didn't play a lot of them.
No.
And I really enjoyed it because I kind of went in. I remember when I first watched it, I was like, I had no idea what I was watching. And I was like, oh, it's Robin Williams. Oh, he's the hero. Oh, it's going to be like him. Oh, my God, he's the villain.
Well, he does save him in the end.
He reminds me... He reminds me of a deranged, alcoholic Wile E. Coyote, who is also a children's entertainer.
Yes, that's a very apt metaphor or analogy.
Yeah, well, I mean, just this, like, Robin Williams' energy in that movie is, it comes out in spurts, I find. Like, he has this elegance to him when he's playing Rainbow Randolph actually on stage with the kids. He's got that fierceness to him when he's taking the bribe to put the kids up front, which, by the way, I got to point out, in a movie like this, you almost expect it to be like an alcohol scandal, a sex assault scandal, something like that. I actually loved how creatively corporate the scandal was in this case.
Yep.
Taking money to highlight children.
Yeah. Which is totally something that, like, man, that's definitely happening in kids' TV.
Well, I mean, you listen back to the old stories about, like, the Soupy Sales show and Bozo the Clown and stuff like that, back in the 1950s and 60s. You hear about a lot of those old stories now about how they had their own groupies, how they're taking bribes, stuff like that, which actually brings me to another thought about this movie. I have to wonder, when Adam Resnick wrote this movie, did he have any of those, all the urban legends that we had growing up about Barney, how it was like, Kayla, you're from Australia. Did you guys have Barney?
I have a specific trauma with Barney.
Yeah?
Not anything really bad, but I did edit sound design for a film school project, and I thought it would be hilarious to make a horror film that starts having weird things happen every time the Barney the dinosaur theme plays. Doing the
Oh,
sound
man.
editing on that is just like, I never want to hear that song again.
Oh my God.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I could see that. We had a friend of ours actually in craft service tell us a story about that with the movie Good Boys. How was that Bang Bang Into the Room song?
Yeah.
And she was saying like, we had to hear this song 500 times over the course of a week, and it was only the first freaking part of it, and they cut the damn scene from the movie after we tortured us for a week with that.
Ha ha ha. That's dark.
My God. But yeah, so we all have those Barney rumors growing up. You know, like when you're a kid, you hear the things like, well, did you hear that the first Barney actually got fired? He's in jail now because he was molesting children. And you hear the other one being like, the other Barney was fired because he was found with cocaine inside his suit. And it's always these like really heinous things that lead you to believe that this children's show is employing like, you know, homeless people off the street as Barney the dinosaur.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this movie and I have to imagine that these were definitely in Adam Resnick's head when he was writing this.
Yeah, no, the whole concept, and now it's even more interesting with this movie where they've just announced that there is going to be like a Barney movie that will be targeting adults who loved Barney as a kid.
Yeah, with Daniel Kaluuya starring and producing.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that because even like if you told me a year ago that I would have wanted to see the Barbie movie, I would have thought you were crazy. And yet, you know, a movie about a fictional doll coming to the real world is kind of intriguing.
Especially when it's written and directed by Greta Gerwig and written by her and Noah Baumbach.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing is like, I would never have believed that that is definitely a movie. And also that people are like, oh yeah, Oppenheimer and Barbie, double feature, baby.
Yeah. Barbenheimer.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm pretty excited for Barbie, though. I will say that. I'm quite excited. It's actually one of the movies I was most looking forward to this year.
Excellent. Yeah.
I don't know. The movie's going to be out by the time this episode's out, I believe. But, you know.
One of my favorite things on the topic of the Barbie movie, I love the Barbie that Kate McKinnon is cast as because it looks like she's a 5-year-old's Barbie. Like her hair's everywhere. She's got crayon on her face. She's like, yeah, you have to pick the sandal.
But you're right about this Barney movie coming out with Danny Kaluuya. You know, it's actually part of an ongoing trend that weirdly enough, I think started with The Muppets in 2011. The Muppets was not obviously a vulgar movie. It was very PG, G mostly, but the meta humor was there. The adult humor, you know, the comedy that went over kids' head was definitely there. I loved it. But then as time went on, I remember they announced a Sesame Street movie a number of years ago that the pandemic all in all killed. But this movie was crazy. They had Bo Burnham writing all the songs for it. It starred Chance the Rapper. They were trying to go with the level of like 2011 Muppets, but applied to Sesame Street. I have no idea what the plot line was going to... Sorry?
Oh, you could totally have it where someone's like an adult and they're trying to get back to Sesame Street because the song is like How to Get to Sesame Street. And it could be like a semi-fictional place. Like it's like moves around or you have to find it, you know, or like something weird like that. Like that. There's a lot of like anything with Muppets is, there's a lot you can do with that.
Totally. But this was an actual movie that was greenlit and everything, but the pandemic killed it. And I haven't heard anything about it since. Bo Burnham was writing all the music for it. That alone had me intrigued. You know, you have the guy who did Inside writing a Sesame Street song.
Oh, it's nuts.
But now back to Death to Smoochie though, like that, this whole era that it was kind of trying to spark, you know, we see a lot of these things from that kind of time period. Of course, this is 2002, but look at the mid 90s with movies like Meet the Feebles because we couldn't do an R-rated Muppets movie, right?
Right.
And that's what we have with Death to Smoochie. It was very clearly supposed to be Barney, very clearly. Yeah. But you can't, no way in hell at that point were they ever going to let you say something about Barney. So switch the names around. All of a sudden you can have him having sex with the head of the studio and getting a gun pulled on him by Robin Williams. Like,
oh, I mean, in Barney, they did a job, like such a good job with him, like that really, you can't really say that the purple dinosaur is portrayed in an evil way in this movie. So yes, he has sex with the head of a studio, but like it is his love interest. It's not like it's seedy. So
yeah, that's true. Although he also has a disturbing ass songs about stepdads. Oh, is it stepdads aren't bad, they're just adjusting, but always remember they're in charge. Was that he locks me in my room with no dinner, but he's not bad, he's just adjusting.
Oh wow. Wow.
That's a dark song, man. It's like you start seeing a lot of that, I think, with Edward Norton's character throughout the movie. His sunny disposition is clearly a defense mechanism. The stuff he's singing about is like pretty dark when you think about it.
It's clearly trauma.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Danny DeVito, though, he directed a solid string of movies. A personal one that I love is Matilda, which I thought the musical recently was fantastic. He directed Matilda. He directed before that The War of the Roses and Throw Mama to the Train.
Well, I heard that the one I watched a little about Death to Smoochy, and they suggest that the failure of this movie is why he is now on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and credit JoeBlow.com what the fuck happened to Death to Smoochy, because it's clear we watched the same video.
Oh, yeah. Though I have to admit, also him in, the Jumanji movie was exceptional.
Absolutely.
I'm glad he's not directing as much because he's great on screen.
Yeah. The guy who makes a lot of these WTF videos is a friend of mine on Facebook who might see this, so I'm just letting him know that, hey, we saw your video.
Yeah, excellent. It was a good video. As I realized I knew nothing about the behind the scenes of the movie and was like, I better find out. All I'd remember was that I'd heard DeVito. I think I'd heard the commentary on it or something, but he muttered to himself yeah, it's finally all over. And there's just a side comment about clearly the movie did not do well for his life.
Well, the last movie he did after that was Duplex. But one thing I was very surprised to find out about, I am shocked Danny DeVito has not directed a single episode of Always Sunny.
Oh, wow, really?
In 17 seasons. Well, 16 for him.
Yeah, maybe he just doesn't want to direct anymore.
Well, no, because he's done a pilot since then. He's done a short film.
Okay.
Yeah.
Weird. I would think it would be strange. Maybe they can't afford him.
Oh, man. It's really unfortunate, though. I quite like his directorial eye. I mean, as a producer, he was unbelievably prolific. He produced Pulp Fiction.
Holy crap, really? Wow.
Yeah, man. Danny DeVito produced Pulp Fiction.
Oh, my God.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's one thing, though, not a lot of people ever seem to really know about him. But, Death to Smoochy is actually the sort of movie I kind of wish we'd see more of nowadays. And I feel like had this movie existed nowadays, it probably would have been like a 6-episode HBO miniseries,
Yeah, no, I mean, hell, that would actually be amazing as a Netflix miniseries of this. That would be so good.
Well, have you seen the series Kidding with Jim Carrey?
No, that was mentioned in the the Joe Blow thing, and I was like, I'd never even heard of this movie, and now I want to watch it.
It wasn't a movie, it was a series, but this is actually one that I was watching from day one. It was Jim Carrey plays a Fred Rogers type character, and you start seeing the darkness behind the smile,
wow.
He has twin sons. One of them was killed in a car accident before the show starts. He got divorced from his wife, played by Judy Greer. He's trying to go through and try to maintain this Mr. Rogers aesthetic about himself and trying to always see the right side of things despite the world falling apart around him. It lasted 2 brilliant seasons. It was a lot of the episodes are directed by Michel Gondry.
Wow.
Who, of course, did Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Moon Indigo, The Science of Sleep, Green Hornet, because I know that one has its fan base too.
How had I never heard of any of this?
Have you not seen the
Kidding? No, these. I mean, Kidding.
I have no idea. It was a fantastic series. And if you like Death to Smoochy, it's a little bit more personal and introspective, obviously. But I think it was easily some of Jim Carrey's best acting in many, many years. It was clearly a character that he felt very close to and felt very much wanting to dig into. And I think much like you see, and I see a parallel between him and Robin Williams, actually.
Wow.
Well, I'd say a mix of Robin Williams. No, not Robin Williams. I'd see a parallel between him and Edward Norton. I would not be surprised. According to IMDb, Jim Carrey was at one point cast in Death to Smoochy, but dropped out. So I'm curious if he was actually cast as Smoochy, as Sherman.
Or Rainbow. Oh yeah, maybe they wanted him to be Rainbow Randolph.
I don't know about that because at this point, Robin Williams was considered an old head. Still, Jim Carrey, 2002, he's still just riding off the 90s success at that point.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. Huh.
And from the sources say that Robin Williams was the first one they thought of for Rainbow.
Oh, that is he was so good. It was
so good. So good.
I could watch that man act all day.
Oh my God,
with Robin Williams in it, no matter what the topic, I'll watch it.
Yeah, I've said about Robin Williams before, and I'll watch every single movie this guy ever took part in because I stood to a reason where I say, you know, we always talk about like modern talents, modern greats, and we say Robin Williams, we talk about him like, oh yeah, he's one of the greats of our time. And I actually take a little bit further from that. I feel like let's say we're like 200 years in the future from now, right? And the world's, you know, on a 1% chance still around. We're 200 years in the future. I always believe that Robin Williams is one of these people that's going to be talked about in the same echelon of performers as like William Shakespeare and stuff like that. I've always thought this about Robin Williams. He's not just a person of our time. I consider him like he's going to be like the Mount Rushmore of entertainment over the last 1,000 years. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
That's my mindset. Sorry?
Well, if you look at all his movies, they're all so like because, you know, we live in a world now of like reboots and remakes and sequels. And like really big IPs, and like almost all like so many of his movies were not these things. They were like, you know, weird, unique things. Like he voiced Aladdin's genie before they had celebrities coming in all the time doing stuff. And,
and that actually, in my opinion, kind of ruined voice acting. I gotta be honest with you.
It's true. Yeah,
I love him in the role, absolutely, but that singular casting is what stopped voice actors from getting those roles.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, he is so expressive with his voice that he is the voice act. Like he is a good, because with all of his stand-up comedy and his impressions.
Yeah.
And like other movies, if you look at like Toys and just like all like Patch Adams, like just like
that
Mrs.
Such
Doubtfire.
a weird movie.
Yeah, like just such freaky. You know, like they weren't these big IPs that we see now. Like he did big stuff, but like even he didn't do Peter Pan. He did Hook, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I loved him in Good Morning Vietnam. I felt that movie, I love how it goes from him being like a comedian and then actually seeing the realistic horror of what's going on around him and having to kind of like take whatever accountability he can have to legitimately help instead of just talking about it.
Now, what if I told you that him and Barry Levinson took the clout from that movie that they got to make Toys?
Oh my God.
Oh.
Yeah. That was Barry Levinson and Robin Williams using their clout to make Toys. And I don't think Toys is a bad movie, but it is a very weird movie, borderline art house.
It is.
I have not seen
so
Toys.
Weird. It is so weird. Do mushrooms and watch it.
I actually genuinely sometimes don't know if I can call that movie good or bad. It exists, and I'm happy it does.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure it has a plot. Like...
It sounds like a Robin Williams experience I need to have.
It's a good one to watch for sure. I mean, watch it once, absolutely. And you'll actually, it's one of those things I think you'll watch it and you'll start noticing how often it's been parodied in cartoons and stuff like that too.
Yes.
Yeah. It's here's the synopsis. A high-tech toy factory falls into the hands of an army general who turns the models into killing machines. The deceased owner's children know what's afoot and, although apparently powerless, have to find a way to bring down the nightmarish empire that is being constructed under their noses.
Yeah, you see, I didn't get that from the plot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just bizarre.
Oh, my God.
Well, I mean, I love Small Soldiers, so
I
I'm sure I will
Small
love Toys.
That's a great movie.
Yeah, this one is more adult than Small Soldiers, but yeah.
Actually, Robin Williams' performance in Death to Smoochy, obviously amazing. I love watching him play a villain because I've seen him as good guys so much, but just watching him get to this deranged place.
Oh yeah, he's just
so
chewing
cool.
the scenery.
But he's not my favorite character in the movie. Weirdly
Who's your
enough,
favorite?
My favorite character is Tommy Cotter. I love her as a mafia mom. Like she's so hard on Smoochy or on Sheldon.
Yeah.
When she's, you have to get my cousin into this. But when Sheldon actually just becomes her cousin's friend and is patient with him, watching her go to bat for Smoochy against all of
Spinner
these.
Done. That subplot is like heartbreaking, but fuck it, it's so sorry the language. It's so good though.
Oh man, it's
Spinner
great.
Done,
And
like the guy who's
so
clearly been
sweet.
hit in the head too many times is like, and is just like a decent guy. And
yeah, like, and the thing is too, at that time too, they wouldn't have been playing him as, you know, mentally challenged or anything like that necessarily. He's a boxer who was a champion who took a few too many knocks to the head, and we've seen a lot of boxers nowadays, like who've had these sorts of situations. I think George Foreman has talked about how he barely remembers half of his like 20s to 30s now.
And then
Like,
and then they take his performance in the show where he almost has this moment of clarity when he's talking to Sheldon about having the lights on him again at the ice show. And you can tell that
yeah.
that's like his former intelligence coming back when he was the star of the ring.
Yeah.
That there's
Yeah.
a lot of fog there that's not
Yeah.
going away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like
no,
they didn't they weren't like actually disrespectful, I feel like, of him, but it was also awesome.
a lot of movies in this era would have been too. That's the thing.
Yeah.
A lot of movies, Michael Rispoli played that with such a good amount of conviction to the role.
Yeah.
But in a way that a lot of movies would have made a huge joke of it. And with him, he was a joke for the first few seconds, but he's actually a very heartwarming character who just truly loves Smoochy and wants to be part of the show. And it's just,
Yeah. Love singing.
yeah, he's just a ray of positivity. Like, and that's what I love. I agree with Kayla. Like having Tommy be the mafia mama throughout the rest of the movie and just be this like supportive mothering figure to
Yeah.
Mopes is such a great turn. Like,
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
And even at the end where she's like, you don't want to do this. You're not going to do anything to him. No, we'll take care of it. Go around the corner.
well, apparently there's actually a deleted scene where they kill the two of them after.
Oh wow.
That was implied to me.
It was implied. Yeah.
I mean, they went out to a farm in the countryside and lived the rest of their days happily as roommates.
Oh
Yeah.
god.
What was that one bit? And then I was like, oh, I don't feel too good anymore. Yeah, then we took his head and we started playing. Nope, don't need to hear it. Okay, I think that's all I need to hear. Just the idea they just full on decapitated his enemies. Like,
Oh yeah.
I think it's unbelievably wholesome that you have this insanely corrupt character who wants to preserve Smoochy's innocence.
yeah.
Yep.
No, I like
Because
that too.
Like, you are a little wholesome bean in this world of horror, and you can't do this. We can do this because we're all going to hell.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And then
one thing I
Jon
really-
Stewart. Oh, sorry.
Jon,
go
I was
ahead.
about to mention.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to mention Jon
appar-
Stewart. Sorry, go on.
I couldn't believe he was in this movie when he came on. I was like, it's so bizarre and it's hilarious because in that Joe Blow video he makes fun of himself, but it's like he's great in it.
Yeah, he's
he's-
too hard on himself for that movie.
He is such a sleazebag. It's great.
No, he plays it pretty well. I actually always kind of wish Jon Stewart did a few more acting roles ever since The Daily Show. There's one movie I'm not super hot on, but I do enjoy in passing that I like him in is Half Baked.
Oh, he's
You ever
in
see that?
Half Baked.
Yes,
Yeah, he does the scene in Half Baked where they're showing themselves starting to deal weed to everybody, and they go, then we have what's called the enhancer. He's a guy that thinks every single thing in life can be enhanced by weed. And he goes, hey man, you ever seen Scent of a Woman? Yeah, I've seen it. You ever
At
seen
the
it?
back of a $10 bill.
You ever seen it on weed?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. And yes, I've seen Half Baked too many times.
I saw it a long time ago. I wouldn't be able to quote it, but I have seen it.
It's got its funny bits for sure. I some people like it more than I do, but it's definitely a fun 90 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a funny 90 minutes for sure. It's really unfortunate that Dave Chappelle has gone the route he has and that Jim Brewer has decided to go full QAnon, but otherwise it's really good.
Oh, really? Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, Jim Brewer is full QAnon nowadays. And I mean, Dave Chappelle's public persona has been obviously very publicized.
Yeah.
His choices he's made in the last few years. But, it is true, though. The cast in this movie is freaking stacked just from the get-go. Harvey Fierstein is a powerhouse in his time throughout this. I love Danny Woodburn. I'm a big Seinfeld fan. I love the scenes with Kramer in Seinfeld. So him in this is just, he's basically playing the exact same character as he did in Seinfeld, though. Like, Rob, are you a Seinfeld fan?
I was not.
Okay.
I know.
Okay.
I would watch episodes, but I never like, it never became part of my like schedule. So I've seen like 6 episodes.
Okay. So because Kayla here hates Seinfeld. And so
I don't hate Seinfeld. I don't think it's as funny as everyone told me it was growing up. And I recognize that other people find it funny, but Jerry Seinfeld isn't funny. And that to me, like the stuff happening around them is kind of funny, but
I'll be honest
I
with
just
you.
I don't believe he's a working comedian in this because his jokes aren't landing.
I think some of his jokes work pretty well in the show, but if I'm being honest with you, the 3 big reasons I watched that show were Kramer, George, and Elaine. And Kramer had a bit where throughout the run of the series, they kind of went back to this a few times that Kramer is also an actor. It's implied that he acts and all that, even though it's never really like it's not like a Joey Tribbiani thing in Friends where it's constantly him going to auditions and stuff like that. You never really know how Kramer makes all of his money throughout the run of the series. Every so often he's like, oh, I had an audition. Oh, I was in this commercial. And then next thing you know, it's like, oh, I was at the pony track. Oh, I was at this. But there's a running thing where he keeps going to these auditions, and he's good friends with another actor played by Danny Woodburn, who is the Rhinette in this movie that fights Robin Williams. I can't remember the character's name. Angelo. Right, Angelo. Yeah. And so he plays Angelo in this movie, but in Seinfeld, his character was quite literally a little person actor who was getting pissed off because he kept getting shunned aside for the more attractive little people, and he never gets the proper roles that Kramer gets because Kramer's not focused enough for the big roles. So there's a lot of scenes where they're in like an audition together, and somehow Kramer has accidentally sabotaged Danny Woodburn's character when he's like flirting with another woman and stuff like that. It's a running thing throughout the series, but he basically played the same character he plays in this movie, right down to the working actor part.
That's interesting. Yeah, he was also a fantastic part of this movie. The kid show like regular who's just like, man, I'm just here for my paycheck.
Yeah, right?
So jaded.
Yeah. And what was the one that Robin Williams? What was the one that Rainbow Randolph called his gang? The Rhinos was the Rhinettes. And was this the Cookie Kids?
I think so. Yeah. Rainbow Rand. I'm good at.
Yeah. Now, one thing I find kind of fascinating of this, I think this movie is beautifully shot. It is shot like a thriller, which I love. You know what I mean? And I think I think that really lends itself to a lot of what it's trying to do. I don't know, had either of you ever seen the movie Game Night? I know you have.
Yes.
Have you seen Game Night, Rob?
Which one is that? Is that
Jason Bateman, Rachel McAdams? Game Night turns into a whole thing where they're actually trying to not get killed by a gang.
Oh,
highly recommend it.
No, I've not. Yeah, no, I haven't seen that one.
One thing I was going to say, though, highly recommend it. Great movie, hilarious. John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein, who recently just wrote and directed Dungeons and Dragons: Heroes Among Thieves.
Oh, wow. That's,
another fantastic movie.
The main point of Game Night is it's an adult group of people who go really crazy on their game nights. Like they'll hire a murder mystery thing and fake kidnap each other. But then they actually get involved in a gang, and they just think it's one of their people pranking them.
The whole time they think they're still in the middle of game night.
That's amazing.
It's freaking hilarious. Highly recommend it to anybody listening. We'll have a link to watch it on Prime or buy the Blu-ray later in our description. What I will say, though, is much like that movie with John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein, they explained how part of the reason why that movie comes across differently than a lot of other comedies because they didn't shoot it like a comedy. They shot it like a thriller. And so they shot with those slow dolly moves and those creeps around and the stark lighting, but it was a comedy. And I think that's where this movie really highlights. I mean, it helps. The DOP for this movie is the incredible DOP turned fantastic director, Barry Sonnenfeld, who had actually, before DOPing Death to Smoochy, he had just directed Men in Black.
Oh my God.
He directed Men in Black, Wild Wild West, Addams Family Values, and then he DOP'd Death to Smoochy.
He did an amazing job. I love, like you were saying, the lighting. I love that it's shot like a thriller and a mob film. Like, I totally believe all of the mob stuff going on.
Yeah. And that's just it. Is that you have this comedic script, but as dark and dramatic as it could be at times, it's a dark comedy, black comedy script. We know that. But yeah, the way they shoot it makes you feel like you're watching a proper thriller, which makes the humor, in my opinion, stand out a lot more and makes the actual, like, you know, intense aspects like the sniper shot and all that feel like you're watching a freaking like early 90s Harrison Ford thriller or something like that.
Oh, but yeah. There's like the contrasty lighting and all the dinner, like the table scenes where they're talking about stuff is all very, very intense.
It's very intense. A lot of that, I think, comes down to DeVito's trust, clearly, in Barry Sonnenfeld, who at this point, like I said, he directed 4 movies at this point. I'm actually a little surprised that he would, because at this point, his career trajectory was going to directing. I'm a little surprised that he was actually DOPing this at this point, because soon after this, he was already going to be doing Men in Black 2.
Right.
So it's not like it must have been something that he did for Danny DeVito or something like that. But, you know, this guy's been carving his look forever. He was the DOP for the Coen brothers' first 4 or 5 movies. And he really kind of created that and established that look and feel that so many movies from the 90s started to copy. And so it does not surprise me that he kind of brought that back and kind of went back to some of his roots for this movie, which actually looks a lot shot-wise to the Coen's first movie, The Blood Simple, which I mentioned on another episode. But it's just beautiful to me. And I think that lends itself so well to why so many of these scenes work. Like when you see the scene with Buggy about to shoot Smoochy in the ice
The
show.
narcoleptic hitman.
Oh my god. Yeah, he's narcoleptic because of his heroin use. Like,
Oh yeah.
you hired a freaking heroin abuser to be your hitman.
Just trying to keep him awake to tell him the job.
Oh my god. But even with that though, like that scene in any other movie would probably be brightly lit, brightly shown for the comedy of it. Like, I like his work, but imagine that in like a Will Ferrell movie from like 2005 or something.
Oh
right?
yeah.
It would have been brightly lit, flat lighting, but they didn't. They focused on the actual aesthetic of the genre. And I think that's what really separates this movie aside from a lot of movies of its sort of kind. And
Yeah.
personally, I think it's a reason why it's kind of grown in its appreciation over the test of time. Obviously not the only reason, but I think that people don't really realize just how much the visual candy of it all, applies to their head of what they think about this movie.
Yeah, well, and I mean, like you said, and it's like a black comedy that's dark, and then also shot like a a corruption criminal thriller, and like it really does, like the quality of it when you watch it. It's definitely one of those things where you don't want to maybe watch it in a theater all the time. It's like one you want to watch at home.
Yeah,
and that's like, and how do you market something like this?
I guess they didn't really find that out, did they?
Yeah, no, I don't think you can, because it's like everybody, you need to be able to market it in like 2 sentences.
Yeah,
and it's got to fit a niche. It's like, well, it's not sci-fi, it's not fantasy, and it's not, it's not a kids show.
Barney meets Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, that's not something that's easy to market.
No, it isn't. Today it would be. Today when you have streaming, and you absolutely could be. It's like what we're saying. This thing would work really well as a modern day miniseries, in my opinion.
What I actually really liked about Smoochy's character is, even though he is a children's performer, he's clearly an artist. When you see his weird ice show where it's just him processing his trauma and giving a send-off. And
so I remember many, 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 many years ago, I was probably about 6 years old. I remember we went, I don't know if we went with my uncle or something like that. We went to like an Aladdin on Ice thing, right? And I remember brief flashes of it. I remember Genie coming out. I remember which I now think about, it was probably just an inflatable Genie starting to inflate up over everything. But I see a lot of tacky stuff, so it's hilarious to see. Yeah, his perception of an ice show is just like opera interpretive dance.
Very
situation.
artsy. Yeah, I've never actually been to an ice show, so but I got that was definitely not what an ice show is.
No, not at all. That was actually quite nice. Although what I will say is the skating in it was wonderful. And I know he choreographed the skate sequence in the credits. I don't know if he choreographed the ice rink one, but the Olympic winning figure skater from Canada, Elvis Stoico, actually choreographed the figure skating at the end of the movie.
Huh.
Of Death to Smoochy?
In Death to Smoochy.
What? Where did you find that out?
Come on, does anybody look at IMDb anymore?
I am. There's just too much to read.
Because there's so much about this movie. But no, Elvis Stoico was the choreographer for the sequence at the end with the credits, and
that
he
is
actually
hilarious.
was also the one skating for Rainbow Randolph for a lot of the wides. Like, when he does that insane that super fast, I don't know any figure skating terms, but that super fast twirl he does at the end. That was all Elvis Stoico.
Move over, Deadpool. Smoochy did it first.
Oh yeah! Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm so excited for Deadpool 3. I cannot wait.
Oh man, right? We're not going to talk about any potential leaks on here right now, but
no, just excited.
Good stuff out there, guys. We got we're okay with spoilers with warnings here. We're not okay with leaks on here.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Now that you talk about like a Netflix series, like, this would be, they really need. It just sucks that it didn't do very well, because like they won't touch it, but like it would be great as like a redo with a 6-episode thing.
Oh yeah.
No, absolutely. I agree with that. I think it's becoming enough of a cult status now that we could probably actually see something like that happening. Like, recently in the last few years, there's been a bit of a trend of streamers adapting movies into TV shows. There's a current one that just happened with I want to say her name, Jesse Eisenberg and Lizzie Kaplan. It was a TV adaptation of the movie Fleischman is in Trouble. that was one that they were doing recently, and they have the new Fatal Attraction series coming out. They tried doing a Cruel Intentions series that didn't really end up happening. They made a pilot for it and everything. But what I'm saying though is, like, I think we are at a point now where I could see somebody pitching a 6-episode Death to Smoochy miniseries.
That's true.
I mean, for God's sakes, Donald Glover is doing a Mr. and Mrs. Smith series now on Amazon, and it's like, we're calling that a classic now too.
I think also with Death to Smoochy, it's obviously gathered a cult following after it had the initial flop. Once people realized what it was trying to do and the movie it was, I think it's got a lot more appreciation. So if you did do a series, it would be easier to pitch because you do actually have a fan base of people who like it.
Do you ever find that era of movies seems to have a lot of that? Like,
yes.
Death to Smoochy, Josie and the Pussycats, Scooby-Doo. Like, these movies that on the out front looked, in the case of Death to Smoochy, may have looked seemed a little half-baked at the time to critics. Not really realizing what the movie was trying to do, or movies like Josie and the Pussycats, which just got slammed by critics at the time, which is a huge cult classic nowadays, because now we recognize that it was actually criticizing media of that time and the concept of corporate takeover towards young children, right?
Which Scream was it that people didn't like about being
Scream
on
3.
a film set?
Scream 3 about being on a film set, but it was all about Me Too and the Harvey Weinstein stuff years before we were talking about this.
Oh yeah.
And we see all this now, and so it's not surprising to me that Death to Smoochy has gained this cult following. One thing I have to question is if Gen X, which came out around that time, was a big reason why these movies were not taking at the time. You had a lot of Gen X writers coming out, making these scripts that maybe are a bit more nihilistic, a bit more cynical, stuff like that, and the audience was not ready for a lot of these. And in case of Josie and the Pussycats, they were expecting another kids movie, when in reality, that is not a kids movie.
Oh God,
I was expecting a kids movie, and on a rewatch, I enjoyed it a lot more when I was older because I understood what it was doing. I find it's the marketing of these kinds of movies in that era, I think, was a big part of people not getting it, because when you're sold a movie, you go in with that idea in your head, especially if you bought your kids to this. I would, if I was a parent and I bought my kids to this, I'd be like, oh, was this an okay thing to bring them to?
Well, if you're a parent taking your kids to a movie called Death to Smoochy with a dead rhino under a body bag on the poster, I kind of question your judgment.
I mean,
I think a lot of the things.
Sorry.
I think a lot of the things too is that, like, there's different places for movies. Like, even nowadays, I find, like, I'm like, if you're working and you're busy, you have to, like, movies are like, I have to do it at like an afternoon on a weekend or an evening on a night. Whereas once it's like it's like a download or it's on streaming, it's like, I'm going to watch a movie at 11 a.m. on Sunday while I'm cleaning the house. And that is not something that you like. That's a very different type of movie than one that I want to go sit in a theater and focus everything on.
I would have loved to have seen this movie in theaters. I'm not going to lie. I would have loved it.
I would have loved to see it at the Rio and just be half cut while I watch it and hearing everybody shout, and just that would be ideal.
That would be amazing.
You hear that, Corin? You hear that, Rachel? Death to Smoochy at the Rio, please.
Yes.
Next up, after we get this miniseries, I want Smoochy on ice. I want to go to this show.
On ice.
There's something that's never been done, an ice show for, like, adults with, like, a dark plot.
Yeah. Do it. Let's friggin' do it.
It's such a great take on ice shows, too, because my family always took me to Disney on Ice. It was a thing we did with all the cousins. It was a huge thing in my family to go to Disney on Ice. So having been to a Disney Ice show and seeing all of the memorabilia in that, and everything is made to make you buy stuff for your kids.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that this is the take they did. I find it extra hilarious because I saw Disney Ice shows as part of my childhood.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
Huh.
I did not know that.
No, and I feel like I've missed out on the world because I've never seen an ice show.
Yeah, you kind of fucked up there, Rob.
Yeah, clearly I'm failing at life.
It's, if you've been to Disneyland, you've seen it. It's basically Disneyland princesses and that on ice.
Except no rides.
Except no rides, yeah.
Except for the ride they take you on price-wise. What?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have wanted to watch it then. The rides are why I went to Disneyland.
Yeah, precisely, right?
There was also fun ice skating, but it was just people ice skating the plot of the movie.
Yeah, that's pretty much all that ever is. Actually, it's funny because we talked about Kidding earlier, the Jim Carrey show, and they actually had a very similar plot line for half a season about Jim Carrey not wanting to do a Mr. Pickles, not wanting there to be an ice show about Mr. Pickles because he's like, that's not real. It's not really me out there. It's just a lie for corporate and capitalist gain. And it's like this whole thing. He's just so adamantly against the ice show. So partially that could have been inspired by Death to Smoochie. And I'm also kind of curious if this is actually a big ire with children's performers, or if this is actually some sort of actual big point of contention in the world of children's programming. I can't imagine it is. But...
yeah, I would have assumed that behind the scenes it's pretty blatantly about money and selling things.
Yeah.
And I think that can be very demoralizing to people. Sometimes people will see a movie like this and they almost want to keep the lie instead of somebody trying to say how the industry really is through their art.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could actually, once again, Scream 3. Oh, man. But, there's a lot of stuff about Death to Smoochie that I find very, very endearing. Like, first off, I think Edward Norton really should have done more comedy in his life. Should do more comedy. I mean, he was in Glass Onion last year, which he was fantastic in. But I thought he was very funny just being this earnest person in this. Like, I think the one part that made me laugh my ass off in this movie was when they're inside of the board meeting for all the merchandise.
Yeah.
And he just has that whole, like, I'm just focused on making the best Smoochie show we could possibly make for the kids, teaching lessons and making good vibes. And who's with me? Just complete silence.
Crickets.
I love when she locks him out of the room.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. No, I really did like this movie. And it's actually interesting because this movie was ahead of its time. I think ahead of its time in multiple ways. And Sherman's character, like Kayla was saying earlier, Sherman was supposed to be an outsider character and it was something that we're making fun of, but that's very much somebody that you see on the regular nowadays. The idea about children's performances, we now know in a post-Me Too world and post, if anyone's familiar, I'm not going to explain a lot of it, but if anyone's familiar with Jimmy Savile in England. I'm not going to get into it on this podcast, but we're now in a world post all that. Look it up.
Yes. Oh God. Oh God. I
kind of feel like though we may have gotten that with Kidding with Jim Carrey, which Showtime did not give the attention it deserved. But yeah, I think nowadays though this movie would do gangbusters exactly with what we know about this world now, right?
It actually gives me, not in the exact same style of comedy, because it's obviously live action, but it seems to have the same sense of sarcasm as Who Framed Roger Rabbit, to me.
Yeah, very much so, like the darkness behind the shine.
Yeah, because Roger Rabbit, I felt, does a similar thing with, cartoons where Roger's just kind of a nice guy and it's all the corporate people around him trying to take him down.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right about that. I can actually see that quite a bit. And also considering I kind of found, if I'm being 100% honest with you, I have quite often in the past confused Danny DeVito and Bob Hoskins. So I can absolutely see the comparison to Roger Rabbit.
I can see that. I can absolutely see that.
Yeah, right?
They both have that grizzly voice.
And for our listeners, if you want a modern Who Framed Roger Rabbit, watch Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers.
Oh, easily.
Are you
I think
kidding?
It's legitimately a sequel.
Yes.
What?
Have you not seen it?
It has mice addicted to cheese. Like, they use cheese as a drug in this world.
Oh, buddy, the movie's effectively about drug addiction and human trafficking. It's
what?
Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. Okay, so this is a pitch. This is a sentence you probably thought you'd never hear. Go see Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers on Disney Plus, starring Andy Samberg and John Mulaney in this wonderful story about drug addiction and human trafficking and the fall of fame, taking place in the same universe as Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Tunes are getting kidnapped and basically being China-fied for the bad remakes of Beauty and the Beast, and the animation looks slightly off. People are kidnapping tunes, putting them in a machine and turning them into that to work overseas for free. Basically.
And they don't pay their debts.
Oh, wow. That is a trip.
Yeah, I highly recommend watching this movie.
That sounds incredible. I'm going to watch that later today while I work. So
you absolutely should. Absolutely should. But no, I see, Kayla, where you're coming from, though, with the Roger Rabbit comparison here, and I could totally see that. Like, it's the same sort of concept, really. It's, you got the mafia getting involved with children entertainers. How's that any different than Roger Rabbit?
Yeah. No.
One thing I loved about this movie is the music in it. The songs that they're singing for Smoochy, for Rainbow Randolph, with the exception of the stepdad one, these sound like songs that you would have heard anyways as a kid. Like, it's not the sort of thing where you're listening to it and it's like clearly a parody. Some of these songs you're hearing, you're like, oh, I remember this from when I was younger, but it's not real. You know what I mean? It was made for the movie.
Yeah.
I've used a term earlier that in the Simpsons world, and the writers of the Simpsons used to use a term called Swartzweldian. What it is one of the writers in the Simpsons, John Swartzwelder, the most prolific writer in the history of the show. He wrote 56 episodes, while the second most amount of episodes by a single writer is 13. So he wrote 56 episodes, and one thing that he would do in his episodes is he would create sayings that they would call Swartzweldian, because they're a saying that sounds like it's always existed before the show was on. Like the episode about Prohibition, Homer says at the end, everyone, to alcohol, the cause and solution to all of life's problems.
Yeah.
That was made up for the episode, but it's the sort of thing you hear and you feel like that's a saying you've heard many times before.
You're like, yeah, my uncle said that when I was a kid. No, he did.
Yeah, exactly. And so that I would use that. So I like to use that term Swartzweldian for that sort of stuff. I say the same thing about the music on the show, The Righteous Gemstones. But in this show here, in this movie here, same thing. All the songs that Rainbow Randolph sings, the songs that Smoochy sings, these all sound like things that you could remember hearing on like Barney or something like that.
Like a Goofy movie, actually. We talked about that recently with all the Powerline songs. Sound like something just in the world.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? I really find there's a special talent to that, because, and it's also kind of unfortunate because the source of this movie means these songs will never be sung by kids.
Yeah.
Oh my God. What was your guys' favorite part of the movie?
I think the favorite part was the was it Spinner Done? I just loved that whole subplot, that with like the mafia, and that's sort of how they tie in, that he like made powerful friends this way, and they both managed to like really show that Sheldon is a good guy and cares about people, and that like even the bad mafia people aren't necessarily evil, they're just dangerous.
Yeah. Also, the fact that the biggest charity supporter is run by the mob is always a really funny touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Kevin?
Oh man, for me, okay. So as I was saying earlier, I love Robin Williams, so it's hard for me not to love every moment of Williams just chewing the hell out of the scenery, especially the moment where he comes in with the gun to Nora and Sherman.
Yeah,
and he comes in with the gun with that. I love that whole chewing the scenery. He starts listing off all the children's host entertainers that she slept with, and then it's that one line where he goes, no, so I forgot Willie the Whale. Sorry, Willie the Whale. What did you two do? And you just hear Robin Williams go, "There she blows." Oh my God, I lost it in that. Kayla, what about you?
I have so many favorite parts of this movie. This is one of my new favorite movies, but I just love some of the dialogue when with Robin Williams just laying in to Smoochy, where it just all of the quotes he has about how he's going to take him down, it's so creative and deranged, and it's the Robin Williams I always wanted to see.
The one thing I love about that too is that a lot of those scenes are when he's in that kind of warehouse thing with like warehouse district with the fire, with the garbage can fire. And when I'm watching these scenes, I'm actually having to wonder, when he's doing those like little villainous monologues of how he's going to take down Smoochy, did they just put the cameras on Robin Williams and just let him go for it for like 20 minutes?
Probably.
Because we're talking about the guy who his entire comedy set list was just topics on a piece of paper. He didn't actually have jokes written or anything.
Huh.
And this is actually what I want to talk about too, is that earlier on I mentioned about my thoughts on Robin Williams as like one of the greatest performers in history. And I stand by this because I think he's a singular talent that we only really get one of every few hundred years. You can get people who master in comedy. You can get people who master in acting and writing, what have you. But Robin Williams was this, not just a force, he was just this like alien of himself, right? You know what I mean? Like you could say the word, I don't know, pocket lint. Say the word pocket lint around him, and next thing you know, he'll be finishing a 2-hour set on pocket lint right there, right from the second. And it'll be the funniest damn thing you've ever heard. And you know what I mean? That's what I love about this guy. He brings so much of that manic energy to this movie, which works so bloody well as a villain in this, which his next two villain roles, 1 Hour Photo and Insomniac, he didn't really go there in that way with it. He was a lot more subdued.
No, it was like quiet, sinister.
Yeah.
Actually, now that I think about it, if I could pinpoint one scene that was my favorite, it's when he gets really dark on the kids show and gets them all to howl.
Oh man, and the camera looks at him and it just kind of has that quiet resolve after he howls, and he just kind of looks almost like evil for a second.
It's this dark moment where you're like, is this the thing that's going to snap this guy? Because he's been like, basically had to deal with cancel culture and been told he's a Nazi.
Yeah.
And he's been on the street.
The world actually cared about that.
Yeah. It's such an intense moment where you can tell that as he's performing, he's processing, and people watching him, they're not worried about what he's saying. They're worried about his mental health because he's become such a beloved character, and they realize this horrible thing that's happened to him.
Yeah.
And you can see on their face, they're like, is he okay?
Yeah. Actually, I want to revise what I said earlier. The reveal of the Nazi party was actually the funniest thing of this whole movie to me. The lights coming up, Hail Smoochy was one of the funniest things I've watched in a long time. Like, oh my God. I always love that sort of thing, though, where it's just the absolute worst and unexpected thing you could have possibly thought of with this.
No, and also kind of funny because Edward Norton's, like, one of his big breakout roles was American History X.
Right? Oh my God.
Yeah, that was only 4
too.
years before this.
Yeah. Oh man. Rob, although I will hate to say it, but we're actually out of time.
Excellent. I have to go get some I have to go download or get my Disney Plus subscription to watch this Chippendales.
Rob, thank you so much for coming on to the show today. For anybody who's listening, we have links in our description for DVDs and Prime Video rentals for Death to Smoochy, as well as, what was the other one we were talking about?
Toys.
Thank you very much. Death to Smoochy and Toys we will be putting up on here, as well as links to Rob's YouTube page. And Rob, is there anything that you'd like to say?
Thank you so much for joining us. You can check out my YouTube channel. I got a bunch of random weird stuff. I got a 3-season fantasy series called Standard Action on it, and I got an interview talk show called Between Two Pints. And I'm launching some new fantasy short films on that YouTube channel later this summer.
That's
wonderful.
fantastic.
We'll keep a lookout for them.
All right. Rob, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.